Here we go. We're going to start the podcast. This is the second part to the Nobody Should Believe Me podcast. I have not heard it either. We're going to do some reactions to it. Let's get into it. Here we go. Let me turn it up. I've actually never used this little app. Here it goes. It's not like a video or anything. They haven't posted the video. It's just the audio.
Hello, it's Andrea. And today we are sharing the second half of my conversation with Gypsy Rose Blanchard.
Hey, y'all.
But before we get into that, I wanted to address some of the conversation online about this interview and some of the feedback that I've gotten from you.
Thank you.
First, I want to say that I know that some of you who listen to this show, including some survivors, have really complicated feelings about Gypsy's story and in turn my decision to air these episodes. And that's valid. This story has been held up as a monolith for Munchausen by proxy abuse, something we obviously hope to correct with the other stories we tell here on Nobody Should Believe Me. And I understand that the attention that this story has received can compound feelings of invisibility for survivors who don't feel represented by it. One of the reasons I wanted to talk to Gypsy is because she's expressed to me a number of times how much she wants to help elevate the voices of other survivors, which I think is a really laudable goal. This is the case I get asked about.
This really bothers me that she's put, like, even mentioning that, oh, Gypsy wants to be a voice for other survivors. Dude, she has said crazy things about Nick's autism. You know, she made comments about how she only wanted to help people who were severely affected and couldn't talk or do anything for themselves. And that to me is alarming. It's alarming that somebody convicted of murder who claims that their mother had Munchausen by proxy only wants to advocate for or help people who can't do anything. Like, dude, I know that's just odd. Thanks, guys, for the gifts. Thanks for tapping the screen. Okay, here, go.
When people hear what I do for a living, it's a complicated cultural touch point, but it's a big one. And in case this isn't clear, I acknowledge that Gypsy participated in a horrific crime. Dee Blanchard didn't deserve to be murdered, and I don't condone it. I can hold space for the idea that someone can be a victim and a perpetrator at the same time. And that happens to be true for both Gypsy and Dee. And the reality is that Gypsy was held accountable for that crime in a way that perpetrators of abuse, even those who murder their own children, very rarely are.
See, and her saying that, like, bringing up, oh, you know, people who hurt their children don't get this kind of, you know, sentence. I feel like she is trying to maximize Gypsy's prison sentence in a way, you know. Trying to make it seem harsher. Girl, cut it the fuck out.
For me, Gypsy is neither a villain nor a vigilante heroine. She's a human being who shouldn't be defined by her worst moments. There are a lot of complexities around victims who commit acts of violence against their abusers. And we're going to have my wonderful colleague, Dr. Kathy Ayub, on to discuss some of those elements in a bit more detail. And again, if this discussion is just not something you have the space for, that's okay.
She tried to minimize
There's also been a dedicated effort by people online to debunk the story of Gypsy's abuse. And that is entirely separate from the complexities of the crime she participated in. This narrative rests on a couple of things, some of which we actually address in the episode, but which I will recap here because they're very common tactics used to disprove Munchausen by proxy abuse and so are worth addressing. The first is this idea that because Gypsy has a genetic condition that could have been responsible for some of her symptoms, that negates abuse. This is a misunderstanding of Munchausen by proxy abuse. A child can have a medical issue that is exaggerated or made worse by a parent, or used as a justification for over-medicalizing them, isolating them, keeping them
exaggerated. You know, so even just claiming that she's having symptoms when she isn't is Munchausen by proxy. And something, you know, I did a bunch of reading on this last night, like what would happen if a kid lied to their mother for X amount of time, making them believe they couldn't walk, blah, 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 and then they found out. It doesn't matter. It still ends up being Munchausen. That's what they say. That is what Dr. Feldman's studies say. So it doesn't matter. Thank you, Misty. It doesn't matter that Gypsy was the one lying. They are still going to claim Munchausen because Dee, even though Gypsy was 19, Dee did not make her be honest, basically. They're going to blame Dee, point blank. Gypsy's going to come out looking like a victim. It's not going to change from what I read. I know it is bullshit. And it just excuses Gypsy's behavior. Thanks, Grace. Thanks.
There's also the idea that Gypsy was actually the one fabricating symptoms rather than Dee Dee. And again, this shows a lack of knowledge about this abuse dynamic and misunderstands the agency that even an older victim has in a case like this. This abuse is not confined to medical abuse. It's financial, emotional, and psychological as well.
For one, how was Gypsy financially abused? She got to go on all kinds of freaking trips. She was not isolated in that house. Thanks, guys, for the gifts. She was not isolated. She got to go to all kinds of little things like Vision Con. Like, dude, where do they come up with this isolated stuff when there's so many pictures of Gypsy Rose out and about at tea parties, on jets? Like, she fucking spoke at conferences as a freaking motivational speaker. It's wild. Sorry.
The big idea that comes up a lot is that Dee Dee Blanchard was never diagnosed with factitious disorder imposed on another or held criminally accountable for her abuse. But anyone who's been listening to this show for a while knows that that's true in most cases. And unfortunately, I know how dedicated the effort to disprove the existence of abuse is in some corners. So these are all arguments that I've seen before. So again, more to come in our conversation with Dr. Ayub. You may have noticed that the conversation has gotten a little out of hand online, and we are going to moderate that space. But please do continue to let us know your thoughts on email at hello@nobodysshouldbelieveme.com. We do our very best to be responsive over there. Thank you as always for listening. We'll be right back with the rest of my conversation with Gypsy. You may have heard me talk about this a bit already, but I wanted to remind you about Podcaster
That's
Pro,
just
the
ad.
podcasting app that I built with Studio,
so
because they are
Andrea is going to excuse Gypsy's behavior, point blank.
Starting Thursday,
you know,
5th, and running through
us even bringing up Gypsy's lies. You know, she says we're uneducated on what Munchausen even is because we question her lies.
This app is designed to help.
I wonder if I can fast forward through these.
What I wish I had individual ads play and for whom on
doctor did put
okay, hang on.
The medical files suspect
immigrants make this country great.
There we go. I skipped through it. I've never used this app.
As mandated reporters,
Here we go.
Just follow that. If you have a gut feeling, like for me, my doctor did put it in the medical files, suspect parent of Munchausen by proxy. But unfortunately,
she leaves out that it also said, or some underlying etiology causing symptoms. He didn't just flat out accuse her, and they always leave that part out. They do mention it in her medical records. It says possible Munchausen by proxy or some underlying etiology causing symptoms. And that was like 3 years before she was diagnosed with the with the microdeletion. Hey, girl, hey. But they always leave that little part out.
My mother did hop around from hospital to hospital. So it was very hard to keep me at one specific hospital. And she would also request medical records, like copies of them. So it was very likely that she did receive.
The fact that they take Gypsy Rose, the fact that they take Dee Dee's diagnosis of Munchausen by proxy as church, that's what it is. But the same doctor that said Dee Dee had Munchausen by proxy also said that Gypsy Rose shows clear signs of sociopathy. They never address that. It's never brought up. And it's the same doctor. And Gypsy's alive and well. Facts. You can't diagnose a dead person. Especially from a murderer's story. Like, what?
Oh. Copy of that exact letter. And it tipped her off. And that's the reason why we moved to a different hospital after that. So I think that even with doctor's intervention, just putting it in the medical records is not enough.
No, and that's actually, they're breaking the law by doing that. As Mike Weber always points out, right, the detective we've had on the show a bunch of times, you are charting a suspicion of abuse without reporting it. And the law says, in all states in the country, at least for now, it says like a reasonable suspicion of abuse. It doesn't mean that you've looked at every medical record and gone and found all the evidence. That's not a doctor's job. The doctor's job is to report it so that CPS and law enforcement can do that investigation.
CPS did come to my house. They did come to my house, and the questions that they were asking me, because they did take me into a different room and they asked me questions.
They took her in to a different room and they asked her questions. Okay. So also, let's not forget that there is a whole freaking report in the little evidence files. If you go to Into the Weeds, it's over there, that literally says Gypsy is an adult. They documented her as an adult. Yet she will try to tell people, oh, I didn't know for her till I was 19 and found an ID. Bro, she knew when CPS came by. It's fucking insane. And the fact they took her into another room and spoke to her alone, and she didn't say nothing. She didn't tell them nothing was amiss, nothing was different. She didn't think that her living, quarters was different from anybody, or how she lived was different from anybody. It's ridiculous. Yeah, she could have. And instead, they documented her as having some kind of a mental defect, a mental handicap. That's what they put on the report after talking to her alone. Happy birthday. Happy birthday, Jilly Bean. I'm Ashley.
Like if I had bruises on my body, if I had scratch marks, they were looking for signs of physical abuse. They did not ask me questions about if I could walk or things like this. Yeah. So for me, this would have been in, I believe, 2009. And, at that time, still again even though I was a teenager,
18.
Very little maturity.
18.
So I'm showing these.
She just said she was a teenager. Girl, you were 18. You were an adult. She is still fucking downplaying it and lying. She's lying. She was 18. Yeah, you were a teen, a fucking adult 18, girl. Are you crazy? She just tried to make it sound like she was a teen when the CPS came by. No, she was not. She was an adult. She was 18 years old. But this is the shit she does. This is how she manipulates her story into something that it isn't.
People around my room like, look at the stuffed animal.
This is the first time I've heard this podcast.
Look at my Barbie collection. Like,
she did.
Not realizing who these people are and that they're here to help me. And growing up as a child, you know how parents always say, oh, be afraid of the boogeyman. Don't let the boogeyman get you. But
I want y'all to understand something too. How much does this podcast sound exactly what she told Kale? This is the same exact shit she told Kale, like almost word for word.
My mom referred to the boogeyman as
she rewatched it.
CPS
she rewatched
is.
it before
she would
she
call
did
it the
this,
state.
so she'd be refreshed.
Don't be bad, or the state will take you away. And at that time, I'm thinking the state is a monster. Yeah. I grew up being conditioned to hide from these people that are supposed to help, and that's a tragedy.
It is, and unfortunately, that experience that you had with CPS is extremely common. They're not educated about this abuse. Most states, there's only 2 states that even have.
For one, if she would have helped them in any way, Gypsy could have gotten up and walked. Okay. This is only a year before she ran off to be with Dan Gladwell. Okay, CPS came, or no, 2 years. My bad. Don't let me get some misinformation out there. 2 years before. This is 2 years before, in 2009. Okay, she could have got up and she could have walked in front of them, but she didn't. They had her alone in a room. She didn't get up. She didn't walk. Instead, she showed them her dolls and her stuffies and continued to pretend like she was mentally handicapped. She did that.
A designation for it, so there's not even like a box to check for Munchausen by proxy abuse, and it usually gets sort of filed under medical neglect, which it can involve medical neglect also, but it's obviously a very different thing. And oftentimes people will be like, oh well, this child doesn't have any bruises on them or cuts, and this person has enough food in the fridge and appears to be taking care of them, and look at, they're taking them to the doctor all the time, they're not neglecting this child. And so there's just this deep misunderstanding. Yeah. So I wonder, especially since you just went through pregnancy and you have a 1-year-old, that's an experience that involves lots of going to the doctor. I think that's one of the most challenging parts for many survivors I've talked to, is that just as a person with a body, you have to go to the doctor. It's really important to be able to go to the doctor and be able to trust doctors. And obviously that's something that is very broken oftentimes for survivors. So how have you been able to navigate that?
I think that it was a slow process because when I first got out of prison, there were things that I was curious about my body. I had difficulty sleeping.
Oh, and here's the crazy thing too, is like Gypsy's Nana, her God-given grandmother, in her police interview says that Gypsy would get up in front of 1,000 people and she said she would give whole speeches. She wasn't scared one bit. But Gypsy tries to make us believe that she was this scared, timid girl who couldn't talk to anybody.
And obviously that's something that is very broken oftentimes for survivors. So how have you been able to navigate that?
I think that it was a slow process because when I first got out of prison, there were things that I was curious about my body. I had difficulty sleeping. So the first time I went to a doctor was my primary care doctor. And my primary care doctor, I was inquiring as to birth control. And so here she is telling me about all these different options. And I got afraid. I'm like, I don't want to put anything in my body. I don't want to do anything to my body that unless it's 100% necessary. And she's just...
Are y'all fucking hearing this? She is telling Andrea, oh, when I got out of jail, and I went to my first doctor's appointment, he gave me birth control. I was scared. Girl, what? You were only out like 2 months and having your teeth done and then your nose sawed on. Who are you fooling? Who are you fooling? But Andrea is letting this shit go on. She's letting it go on. She knows damn well Gypsy got out, got teeth, got her nose done, got pregnant. Like, when was she scared to go to the doctor? When? Yeah, okay.
Trying to explain to me birth control. So, it was
she didn't want that damn birth control. Even, she tried to lie and say, oh, I was on birth control when me and Ken got together. After she had the baby, a couple months after, she did some live. It wasn't that long ago, if I'm remembering correctly, where she is like, I was on birth control, but I always forgot to take it. She says something like that. No, you didn't forget. You didn't want to take it. Because when you were with Ryan, you were taking that shit and popping Plan Bs. But with Ken, okay, girl, we see you, honey.
Able to have bodily autonomy and say, okay, I don't want this. I think that this would be a better option for me. And I was very open and honest with like my family. And I'm like, I don't trust doctors. And it's really funny because my sister was a nurse in school. She just graduated and she's working as a labor and delivery nurse now. And I said, you know what? I think you're the only nurse that I like.
Look. She is insane. Dr. Feldman said something in an article one time about how Gypsy has never met a microphone she didn't like. And the same goes for a doctor's office. That girl ain't ever met a doctor that she didn't love to continue going to. Okay? Right. She's living honestly. Remember that post? What was it, a week ago? I'm just trying to move on and live honestly. Okay. Where's that honesty today in this podcast?
Yeah. That's actually so wonderful. I'd heard you say that and I just thought, oh, that's so wonderful that that seems like it might be a really positive bridge for you to be able to, obviously you trust your sister a lot. She's a nurse. Like you have a trusted person you can kind of run medical stuff by. And it struck me that might be a really helpful bridge for you to heal that relationship between you and the medical system.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Well, something I've been really glad that you have talked about publicly is this process about working to hold yourself accountable.
Girl, I've wondered if she had her on this podcast as a study subject and Gypsy don't even know it. Because this is Mark Feldman's buddy. They're on the board of whatever together, okay? So she knows that Mark Feldman said Gypsy Rose shows signs of sociopathy. She knows that Mark Feldman said that Gypsy groomed Nicholas Godejohn. She knows that Gypsy's language is manipulation. She knows this. So it is fucking insane she's entertaining this. Unless she's studying her.
And not just in the context of the, the crime that you were an accessory to, but just more generally, right? Of like not falling into some of these learned behaviors from your mom of, getting your needs met via deception or manipulation. And I think this is something that, many survivors struggle with, right? If that's the person that you were raised by and isolated with had these extremely damaging and dangerous coping mechanisms, that's going to be a challenge to not adopt some of those learned behaviors. And so can you talk a little bit about that, your process and what sort of helped you develop more healthy coping mechanisms?
Absolutely. In my early childhood and my, teen years and early 20s, she was all that I had. She was a single mother raising me on her own.
If you don't know, she's trying to ask Gypsy, how she's decided to deal, what she's learned to deal healthily instead of manipulating. Okay, so y'all listen up. Let's hear what she says. Thanks, friend.
And so, of course, everything that she was doing, I learned from her. That's how I grew up. And unfortunately, that's the hard facts of it. She was not a positive role model. So how those things that I have learned, I am actively choosing to unlearn. And
Now, how was Dee Dee the one to put it in Gypsy Rose's head? Hey, I'm going to start lying. I know I got the feeling back. Thanks, Ash. I know I got the feeling back in my legs, but I'm going to lie about it. How did Dee Dee have any bearing on that? Because Gypsy says she started lying because, I didn't want to lose my mother's love. How did Dee Dee teach you that, girl? That's some shit you came up with, not Dee Dee. Yeah, Dee Dee taught her how to do that, all those dance moves, honey. Dee Dee had rhythm. I've seen Dee Dee dance.
I've been working with a therapist with that. It is something that it's like peeling back layers. You have to understand why you do certain behaviors and then understand where those come from and why you act that way. So I'm working on that in therapy. And, what we're working on currently is my impulsive behavior. So, it's like, and communication, but it's something that it's a daily task. It's something you have to keep at the forefront of your brain. Like, I understand that I grew up this way, but it does not give me an excuse to continue this behavior. This is the wrong way. I was taught the wrong way. Let's apply the right way and make better choices. I am so firm on, I will tell anybody this, I'm so firm on not becoming my mother.
Girl, I'm going to tell you what, you have already acted like your mother for the last 2 years. You can claim, I'm trying not to be like my mom all you want. You exploited your mother's death for money. You exploited the murder you committed for money. Okay? That's some shit your mama would have done. If we're talking about the person you said she was, that's something she would have done. Secondly, thank you, Susie. The pictures that keep being posted of Aurora, the teasing pictures. Oh, here's a picture of her, cover her face a little, and then, it's this side picture, another side. You're exploiting her. You said you wasn't going to post her pictures, and now you do little teasers to keep people hanging on. We know what that is. You do act like your mom. You are manipulative like your mom. You manipulate people's feelings like your mother did. Look at Ryan. Got his fucking feelings so twisted. Dude is just still talking about your ass 2 years later. So this is insane. This is ridiculous. These are lies.
It's not even funny how determined I am to be as far away from her personality as possible, right. And her behaviors. So
yeah, and that I really commend you for being so active about that part of things because, it can be, I think, quite complicated, right, for people who were raised in any abusive situation, right, to they have to make a really active choice to not, we're all really influenced by our parents. We're all really influenced by, profoundly influenced by what we grew up around. And so I think people deserve so much credit when they make really active choices not to keep that abuse cycle going.
Right.
Yeah. We've been talking about this profound isolation that you were subject to and that you were not allowed to build relationships with other safe, really all the, you're a parent now, I'm sure you feel the same, all the things that we want our child to learn to do, right? To be able to develop relationships with peers and to be able to learn that there are other adults that they can trust, within.
Now, we have been fed this story Gypsy wasn't allowed to talk to her dad and, she didn't get to have friends. It's all lies. They found in the Facebook messages where Dee Dee was trying to let Gypsy go with their dad when they were going to like Disney World or something. And Rod made excuses on why he couldn't, for one. And then she socialized with all kinds of people. I mean, she had a whole gang of folks at the Vision Con making her free Mandalorian suits and stuff like that. Like, and her mom didn't restrict her that damn much from internet life either. Thanks, Queen, because she was talking to whoever, whenever on there. I mean, what kind of isolation? Because she was always around fucking people. Right? I mean, I don't feel like she was just isolated like that. Not like how they try to portray. Now, I'm not saying she just had a completely normal life. You know what I'm saying? Obviously. But she wasn't isolated the way she has tried to make people freaking believe. When she was live, she had Miss Rachel. Oh, girl. I'm nothing. I'm not even.
Family or their teacher, or like, help them figure out who's a safe adult and who isn't. And you were just deprived of really all those experiences kind of wholesale. And so how has that affected your ability to have relationships, whether they're romantic kind of partnered relationships or just your relationships with peers? How have you navigated like that piece of just learning how to have healthy relationships with other people when you just weren't allowed to like develop those skills the way you hope a child would be?
It's difficult. I manage because thankfully the support system that I have loves me for me. They understand that I am not perfect and I do kind of mess up sometimes, but navigating friendships and all these sort of relationships are so much easier when you're a child. But because I didn't have that really growing up, I'm learning all that stuff now. And so it's kind of like even this last Christmas, of course, what Christmas doesn't have a little bit of family drama. So it was my first experience kind of dealing with that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like how am I going to handle all this stress? And I just want everybody to get along. And but thankfully it's like I have such a great support system. And
I'll show you my puss. I'll show you my dog. I lifted my leg up. Jess. Hey. She's like, I ain't looking at that camera. Hang on here. Jess. Jess. Hey. It's like she knows when I have a camera. She'll dodge it. She will not look. She's like, mm-mm. Yeah, she's listening to the drama with me. Yeah. She's like, oh gosh, this again, Mama? Yes, honey. This again. Okay, I missed what she said. Hang on, rewind it like 30 seconds.
All these sort of relationships are so much easier when you're a child, but because I didn't have that really growing up, I'm learning all that stuff now. And so it's kind of like even this last Christmas, of course, what Christmas doesn't have a little bit of family drama. So it was my first experience kind of dealing with that. And I'm just like, oh my goodness, like how am I going to handle all this stress? And I just want everybody to get along. And but thankfully it's like I have such a great support system, and it's a daily thing of being able to learn how to communicate appropriately my emotions, because like I said, I'm impulsive and I will act without thinking at first. And so whenever it comes to communication, building,
that's because it all revolves around her. And as far as that impulse thing, I think that's something that she has struggled with from the get-go. And I think Dee Dee knew that. I think Dee Dee knew she struggled with impulse control, and that's, Gypsy called Dee Dee, oh, she controls my life. She controls my life. I think Dee Dee was trying to get Gypsy's, like, impulse control under control. You know what I mean? Oh, that's that motion sensor. Oh, for sure. Christy, for sure. Like, people... That damn light blinking. It's that light over there doing that. But anyway, Christy for sure. Like, she was talking shit from the get-go on Facebook when things first happened. Like, very first happened. People were calling her out about it, too. Like, saying that she was an attention seeker.
These relationships that are healthy comes with healthy communication. Enough to say, I'm having difficulties processing this. It's a lot on me right now, and I really need your understanding and your support. Just that little bit makes the world of a difference.
Yeah. Well, I have to say, Gypsy, your exceptionally good at articulating these experiences and articulating your emotions and your thoughts. I'm so glad that you're in therapy. I think it sounds like you're having a really good experience with it and that it's been really helpful. I think also therapy is one of those things that people get into it, get out of it what they put into it. Can you talk a little bit more about your support system? You know, obviously I don't know them, I haven't met them, but certainly your dad and your stepmom, Christy, and your sister all came off, I think, just really lovely in the, you know, in the pieces of media that they did participate in. You know, you've talked about them being a support system. So can you talk a little bit about, I think that's such a hopeful part of your story, that even though you were not allowed to have, you know, the close relationships that you wish you'd had growing up, that it seems like you really have.
You know, Gypsy could have talked to Mia. She could have talked to Rod. Thank you, Just, thank you. She could have talked to Mia. She could have talked. Oh, that's Jazzy. She cut my spotlight off. I was about to say, I know damn well. I was about to freak out. Oh, shit. Anyway, she could have had a relationship with Mia. She could have sent Rod messages. You know what I'm saying? She had multiple Facebooks. Rod was friends with Gypsy on his Facebook. You know what I'm saying? So it's not that she couldn't have talked to them. She chose not to until she committed the murder. And then it was the first mofo she called. You know? After Christy and her dad had to stay with them after the crime. I know. And that's another little interesting thing, too, is like, so in the interrogation, there's a part where she tells Detective Hancock, she's like, what'd she say? My mom or my aunt Rachel has guardianship papers on me, you know, and she goes on to say that she has the mind of like a 14-year-old. She was trying to go to Rachel and raise. She wasn't even worried about her daddy then. You know, thank you, Tish. Is that how you say it? Tisha? Hey, thank you, Tisha. But she wasn't worried about going to Rod's then. I'm pretty sure it wasn't until, you know, her con, the fact she was over 20 years old and the fact that she wasn't sick was busted out, then she called fucking Rod. Like, people can say what they want, but Gypsy was going to keep conning. She was going to continue making her little Aunt Rachel and Uncle whatever is Ray believe that she was mentally delayed, dude. And I think that's why she wasn't going to go to Rod's. It's because Rod and Christy said in one of her interviews, like, don't let Gypsy fool you. She's smarter than she lets on.
Been able to establish very deep bonds with them as an adult and in this season of your life. And can you just tell us a little bit about them and what that's meant to you?
Where did the cube go? I guess they gave it back because she had just bought it. That probably went back.
Yes, I mean, my dad and my stepmother and my sister, my brother, you know, and extended family, you know, they all were robbed of having a true relationship with me. I didn't grow up with my brother and sister. And so I'm learning who they are, and we're all learning who each other is as adults. So coming into that, it's kind of like, it's a little awkward at first, but then, you know, after this time together of actual in-person time, we've been able to make memories together and be there for each other through the ups and the downs. And what's wonderful is, you know, I always like to say that Christy is, you know, the mother I wish that I always had. And that's just because she is so supportive of me. She gives me so much great advice. And my dad as well. Like, we were at Thanksgiving.
She was calling that lady mom as soon as she started calling her from jail. She was literally calling Christy mom. As soon as she made the call from jail, she started calling Christy mom. She was looking for a replacement for Dee Dee from the jump. Oh my gosh, thanks. I'm Christy. Thanks. That's awesome. Thank you. The very first call. Yes, Daphne. Like, bro, she found a replacement for Dee Dee immediately. No, she was not. Clock it, Stevie. She was not loyal to Christy whatsoever. And I think that's why she didn't want to get out and go to Christy and Rod's. I think that's why she married Ryan, is because she knew that Christy knew that she facilitated some of that shit her dad was doing, condoned it, and didn't say shit about it.
All together, and it's like a family tradition to go all around the room and say what we're thankful for. And I was saying how, you know, I've come to my dad with some really heavy stuff, and he has given me really solid advice. He is not the type of person to be around the bush. He doesn't sugarcoat anything, and he'll tell it how it is, and he holds me accountable. You know, sometimes I need people to hold me accountable while I'm going through this growth stage in my life. You know, going back to the upbringing where it's kind of like you do kind of put excuses. Oh, well, I grew up this way, so that's why I am this way, you know, and they're like, that doesn't.
Who holds her accountable? Who holds her accountable? The only time I feel like Rod was even holding her accountable was when the show was airing. Like, they couldn't have it look a certain way then. So he did call her out. Thank you. He's 74. Thank you. But as of now, I haven't seen them call her out about shit. You know? I hadn't seen anybody hold her accountable. They just continue to carry on her freaking lies. Yeah, exactly. I now have the fairy tale life always dreamed. You ready to go in?
Give you an excuse to be that way now. So, they hold me 100% accountable as well. And that helps me grow. And then my wonderful boyfriend, Ken, who is the father of our child, Aurora, he has been so supportive and he is the best dad. And it is so beautiful watching us have this sort of life that I always imagined for myself. And it's kind of like, is this really my life right now? Do I really have, the dad that I wanted the relationship with, the sister, the brother, the mom, the, boyfriend, the baby, like the dog, like it's all.
At what cost, Gypsy? There's a guy sitting in fucking prison for life so that you could have that life. He is doing life in prison so that she could have that life, and she don't even bring him up. She don't even talk about him. She don't advocate for him. She does nothing. That's what pisses me off about it. Like, bro, dude is sitting in jail, never getting out so that she could have this lavish ass life, this beautiful life, and she does not even think about him. Like, that's beyond low down to me. I don't know. That's wrong. It's so fucking wrong to me.
All a happy ending to...
No, at the very least, you should be putting money on his books. Even if you don't ever want to talk to him again, at the very least, you should be freaking putting money on his books and making sure he ain't wanting for nothing up in that motherfucker. You know what I'm saying? But I don't think she feels like that because she had him murder her mom over a lie. So of course she doesn't feel like he saved her. Of course she doesn't feel like she should help him or put money on his books. Because he did it over a lie, and she knows that. He's not very... Who? Yeah. It's messed up. It's messed up. And I don't believe the story, but, if you're going by her story, he's the one that got you out of it. Yeah. He's definitely... I still think he's probably holding some stuff back, for sure. For sure.
A tragic story, but it doesn't mean that my life ends or that's where my story stops. It continues, but the worst parts of my life are behind me.
Yeah. Well, I'm getting a little emotional, hearing you say all this, because I know that for me and for a lot of our listeners who are in this situation where they have been cut off from family members who they wished to have had in their lives. For me, my niece and nephew, we hear from dads who really tried to advocate for their children. And
I just want to say this too. If you don't know, Andrea has a sister who she says, thanks, Holly Marie. Holly, thank you. I want to make sure I got your name right. But she has this... Andrea is the one who runs the Nobody Should Believe Me podcast. So Andrea has a sister that she believes has Munchausen by proxy. And thanks, girl. Thanks, Eliza. Is that your name? I don't want to get your name wrong. Pale Eliza, thank you. But I think she has some personal feelings tied into this, and I think it clouds her damn judgment. I do. Thanks, girl. Thank you for the taps, and thank you for the gifts, guys.
Tried to get, and stepmoms and grandparents. And we have a lot of those people that listen to the show. And it's a profound loss, right? To not be able to be in the life of a child that is your family member and that you hope to have in your life. And I guess my question for you is for those of us that are on the outside. And
that's what I read too. I read that too when Elsa Jameson, right before I got on here, I kind of dug into her sister. And from what I saw, those claims have never been fucking substantiated. It's just Andrea saying that. So...
hoping to someday reconnect with those children when they become adults and hoping to have the experience that you're describing, hoping to be able to someday sit around a Thanksgiving table with them possibly and be a good influence on their life and provide that wonderful support that your family is providing you right now. What would you tell me and others that are in that situation? How should we maybe someday approach those survivors?
I think calmly, definitely a calm approach, because it can be overwhelming having people that either you didn't realize cared that much or are just coming in and you don't trust them right away. So I would say take a calm approach and have that hope that you could have that genuine relationship and take your time with it, because it's not something that you could achieve overnight. That trust needs to be built, that communication, memories need to be built. So time is the most important thing. So give yourself and others grace to know that it is coming. That is the goal. It will happen, but it just will take time. And as cliche as that sounds, it is just so true. And never lose that hope, no matter how hard the survivor might push back, because I told my stepmom at one time, I didn't like you very much. My mom said a lot of mean things about you, and I didn't want a relationship with you. But then she became literally my mom. Like, I call her mom.
When did she say that? When did she ever tell Christy, I didn't like you? Because we've heard the jail calls, girl. And from the first jail call, you were like, hey, Mom, I'm a good girl. I'm a good girl. When was this conversation? Because I know if I don't like a woman, I'm definitely not going to be calling her mommy 5 days after I murder my actual mom, by the way. That's not going to happen. Using discernment.
So even if there is that pushback, understand that there is so many emotions that survivor.
I definitely judge her lies. I judge her lies. I do. I do. Because they are just consistently flowing out of her mouth. She is just all the time saying some new lie or some crazy shit that makes her look like, oh, I'm a victim. You know, so I do. I judge the things she says. It is. It's very hard. It's very hard.
Working through that person just needs you to be there at their side and give them that time.
Oh, she thinks I mean, I think that's again like that's. She thinks she is 100% a victim. She does not care about the video. She does not care about what Gypsy has said. She said this is all stuff that comes out because of trauma and things like that. She don't care. Gypsy was affected by Munchausen by proxy. Period. That's what she said. That not like that, but in so many words.
And that family members who have attempted to intervene, attempted to protect the child, get cut out, and then made into these, you know, as you said, like boogeymen, boogie persons, you know, where like, oh, that person tried to take you away from me, or they're out to get me, or like that kind of thing. And so, you know, I think many of us on the outside kind of recognize, oh boy, we're going to have a heck of a sort of like impression to overcome about who we are and what our intentions were. And it sounds like for you, your stepmom maybe in particular, just giving you that time.
So, okay, I'm going to read this real quick. I wonder what Andrea's motive is for accusing her sister. Okay, so there may not be a motive. Just hear me out. You know how, like, when you start noticing yellow Volkswagens, all of a sudden you're seeing them everywhere, okay? I think Andrea got to studying in this career, studying Munchausen, and all of a sudden everything was Munchausen. No, I don't know. I don't know if that's what happened, but I mean, I'm just saying. I don't know. I'm just kidding, though. I have to read some more on it. I did see where it said that her sister was saying she was being falsely accused, but I have to do some more reading on it to see why exactly she even started accusing her. Yeah, definitely. Audrey did a video, actually. She did a video earlier where she was talking about, you know, Gypsy says all these things like Dee Dee was looking up symptoms, yada, yada. She was doing this, making them believe she was having the symptoms that match up with her 1Q 2.1. But Audrey went through not Gypsy's, but Dee Dee's search history. And, dude, there were no searches to do with anything pertaining to symptoms Gypsy had. It was all for Dee Dee. Thank you. I want to stop. I've been trying to tell. My cat is like, look at this. She has pulled out every box that was over there. She's inside that one. So if that's the noise y'all are hearing, I'm just letting her do her thing. But I have been talking to Evan and like trying to tell him, you know, I want to work out somewhere where I can start making time to go live every night. You know, I have 3 kids that live with me. My oldest one doesn't, but it's really hard for me to find time where I can sit and do this and them not being loud, you know. Yeah, I have an orange cat too. And she's wild. I love her to death though. She's almost taken us out. A couple weeks ago, sorry, I gotta open it here. We can do it like that. But a couple weeks ago, I woke up to get my kids up, And dude, she had turned on my gas while I was sleeping, and I don't know how long it had been on, but it was on long enough that I was like smelling it when I woke up. So yeah, I had to buy little knob things to go over that because she almost took us out. Her name is Phoenix. Her name is Phoenix, but we call her Kiki. Okay, let's keep going. Orange cats are crazy. I love my cat though. She has become like a emotional support cat for me at this point. Like I had a cat when I was real young and haven't had one since. I've just had dogs, and I got Kiki and I just fell in love. I did. She's my baby. Okay, let's keep going.
Time to like work through all those feelings and really get to know her and make your own connection about what reality was. Sounds like.
Exactly.
Yeah, so I really appreciate that perspective and that advice. So one more serious question, and then I want to do a couple fun questions if you're up for it.
Okay.
So, part of what I had my listeners give me some feedback on what they wanted answered, and so we addressed a lot of the stuff they asked about. And also just, I wanted to tell you that there were so many well wishes for you, and just people that are, again, like really appreciative of what your case has brought in terms of awareness about Munchausen by proxy. And then just like that they're just like really want good things for you. And I know that they'll be so happy to hear everything you just told me about how good things are at the moment. Obviously a major event has happened in your life, and you've lived many, many lives in your short time here on Earth. And so obviously a big chapter has been that you are now a mom, and you have a beautiful 1-year-old daughter, Aurora. I talked to you when she was brand new. I mean, like fresh out of the oven, and in that, those tender first days. And so what has it been like for you, as you sort of like charmingly put it, perhaps some mommy issues? Becoming a new mom is a profound, earth-shaking experience for anyone. Obviously, for people who are coming in.
Thank you guys for tapping the screen. Thank you for the gifts. Thanks for hanging out. We are really doing this. We're getting it, baby. So thank you so much for hanging out and give me all the love. I appreciate y'all so much for being here. Series, picking up everything I'm saying.
Your situation for survivors, it is fraught on so many other levels. So how have you navigated becoming a mom?
It was something that, of course, my pregnancy was unexpected. I wasn't trying or anything. But then when I found out,
who was the pregnancy unexpected for? Who was Ken? I forgot. Ken was not expecting it. Never mind. Let me stop. It was Ken.
Out that I was pregnant, it changed my whole life for the better. It made me take a step back and look at my life and realize that, holy crap, like I am responsible and I am about to be someone's mom, and how
I don't know.
That word mom, that title, holds so many meanings for me. And what do I want to do differently? And now that she's 1 year old, I have come to the realization that like just watching her simply grow and meet milestones, and the moments that we're laughing together and we're playing and all of these things, I'm like, is just so beautiful. And it made me feel like I want to be the best version of myself for her.
Yes. Okay. So Cherie, did I say it right? Cherie? I hope I said it. I hope I said it right. Thank you. Thank you, Katrina. Thank you, Cherie. The fact that she says the baby will heal her issues is scary. It is scary. There's something else she has said a couple of times where there was one video, I think it's also in her show, where she's crying and she's like, I just want her to forgive me. I don't want her to hate me. And she's talking about her kid. She's talking about how she wants Aurora to forgive her for murdering her grandmother. And that's a lot of weight to put on a kid, for one. How is your child going to forgive you for a murder you committed 20 years ago before she was born? Not 20, but you know what I mean? Like, what are you talking about? Yeah, and here's my thing. What'll be really interesting is like once she gets older and can talk back, because baby stages are easy, honey. It's when they get older and they thank you, Katrina, then they can tell you how they really feel, But just saying that she wants her daughter to forgive her for this, like, how is she supposed to be the one to give you forgiveness? Oops.
And I know that I can't exactly speed my healing up, but it did make me mature a lot more and ground me so much more in my life. And I say, she is my world. If I do nothing else right on this planet and I leave this earth having nothing else, but if she calls me a good mom, that will make my life.
I am slowly but surely replacing so much of my wardrobe with luxury, high-quality staples from Quince. So I've feared that my workout labels, but I want night worth the show.
This episode is brought to you by Peloton. Introducing the new Peloton
Interesting sort of celebrity-adjacent experiences.
See, and the next thing you know, because I know that...
And because, Kim Kardashian, one of the things she's doing in this stage of her life is, sort of... First of all, you've had some interesting sort of celebrity-adjacent experiences.
breakthroughs. Terms apply.
No, I didn't. Okay. Sorry, I thought I'd skipped something because the way it started.
First of all,
well, you know what's really going to scar her? Gypsy dedicated that My Time to Stand book to her. And if she reads that, she definitely will be scarred for a little bit. Because that book is atrocious with insane lies in it and some of the most vile graphic details. And yet Gypsy Rose thought it was a good idea to dedicate it to her daughter.
You've had some interesting sort of celebrity-adjacent experiences, one of which was going on the Kardashians. And because, Kim Kardashian, one of the things she's doing in this stage of her life is, sort of advocacy for prison reform and that kind of thing.
Yeah,
so what was that like?
It is
and
like
tell us about that experience.
It was wild because I know that I had made a post on social media and half of me was like kidding and the other half of me was serious. When I posted it, I'm like, hey, let's team up together to do some advocacy. And the next thing you know, like, I get a email and a phone call from her producer, like, Kim wants to meet you. And I'm like, oh my goodness, like, this is epic. Now, keep in mind, I have never watched the Kardashians. And so I didn't know.
Honestly, nor have I. I've seen like bits and pieces of it because I think it's like unavoidable in this life. But so you were not like a fan coming in.
No,
you were just like, hey, this is just kind of threw it out there.
Now, who believes that?
Kardashians. And I'm like,
who believes that? Y'all think she wasn't a fan? Y'all think she was never a fan of Kim and she just randomly reached out to Kim Kardashian, even though she wasn't a fan of her? Y'all think that's true? I don't believe that at all. Oh, yeah, I know. I don't know why she did that with the book. I don't know why she dedicated to her. There's a lot of things I've wondered why she did, because now you have a kid. Those things are going to circle back at some point. Like I don't know. Kim unfollowed her. Not surprised. Kim's good about when shit gets thick. She gonna put some distance. She don't want to be associated with it. Hold on. Oh, my little puzzle piece. Hold on, y'all. Just making sure I'm actually on here. Well, what's going on? Why is it doing that? Oh my gosh, dude. Okay, there. I don't know why it does that. Like, if I stay on for an hour, it makes me do this little puzzle piece. And it's really fickle. Like, if I barely touch it too much when I'm taking my thumb off, it'll do something weird. Yeah, she definitely did. She definitely thought Kim was going to make her a little famous. I think she thought she was going to be able to meet Taylor Swift, like go to the game, meet Taylor Swift, yada, yada. And when that didn't work out, I think she was like, all right, I'm just going to start throwing out hooks and see which one bites. You know what I'm saying? Just going to start messaging or shooting people a comment. Hey, that's what I think she did. And Kim was the one that took the bait.
Like, oh, that's nice. That's Kim's show, right? Yeah, she's she's a model,
yeah,
right?
She definitely knew who they were.
Like, I didn't really know anything about her at all. I knew that she's
do?
extremely famous, and that's about it. But meeting her, she is so much more down to earth than people think. I will say that, like, after the interview was done and filming was done, like, we FaceTimed with her daughter. We sat down for longer and had a good chat. She's just so down to earth, and she's a lovely lady. And I think it's wonderful what she's doing and building her career into, more of a serious phase in her life. I think that's wonderful.
And what did y'all talk about when you were in that episode? Like, what was sort of the advocacy angle?
It was sort of like her kind of almost mentoring me because I was overwhelmed with everyone calling me to advocate. So I was kind of getting feedback from her, like, how do I start? Where do I even begin? I have zero connections.
I know
in the industry of where I need to go, where I can speak, how do I speak? And then what about the haters? Like, there'll be the naysayers. And so it was a whole conversation about prison reform perform, but also about
the screen,
where
guys. Thank you.
to even begin advocacy.
Yeah, and that was one of the other things I wanted to ask you about. And certainly, hopefully I can answer some of those questions for you if that's something you're interested in doing, and talk about, there's actually APSAC, which is the organization that I'm part of, the American Professional Society on the Abuse of Children.
Is that better?
Mary Sanders and Bjorker and Dr. Mark Feldman.
Is that better?
Are all
Can you hear
they
me
have one of their
that?
2 big annual conferences in New Orleans. So that's quite local for you. So we should talk about that later. But was that conversation with Kim, and I think it must have been helpful to sort of talk to her about, as someone who's experiencing these sort of wild experiences on social media. I'm sure she's had many of those as well. Was that conversation sort of helpful for you? And where are you in that? I remember sort of saying and thinking, when you were in that very fresh time of getting out of prison and navigating all of that, and people were like, well, she should be advocating. And I was like, only if she wants to. Like,
that was cute.
I've
never
seen
seen
that
one
on anyone. That's not anyone's job. Like, I said then about it, and I will say it to you now. Like, and you just were talking about your daughter, and like, listen, Gypsy, if you go off now and live whatever life you want to live, and you're focused on your healing and raising your daughter and being the person that you want to be with your family, like, that's enough. You don't owe anybody anything. You don't owe anyone anything. Just because this brought you all of this attention that you didn't ask for, you don't owe anybody you doing something with a platform. Like, that just isn't something. I hope you can really let go of that. You know,
Gypsy does not feel like she owes anybody. Where I don't know why she even thinks that. That girl doesn't think she owes a damn person in this world. That girl gets on these lives and stuff like that and does all this because she wants to do it. She goes on these interviews, she does these documentaries because she wants to do it. She wants the attention she gets from it. Nobody, who is even expecting anything of Gypsy? She was the one who was like, oh, I'm going to advocate for this, I'm going to do that. Nobody told her, hey, you should. She's the one who did this, you know? And when that's just it, Seductive, she won't just focus on her healing. She ain't doing it. She did not do it the 10 years she was in prison, or 8.5, whatever. But she didn't do it then. She did not do it. She was talking to men the whole time. That's all she cared about. Another thing I found interesting with the people she was writing back is, like, she had quite a few females write her when she was in prison too, and she did not write those people back. Thanks, 1 ounce of Jameson. Thank you. Ashley Bailey only needs 2 special gifts to have her a gift. Oh, I don't know. Yeah. I don't know what that means. I don't know about the gifts on here anymore. They've done switched it. Thank you, Harley. They've switched it so much, I don't know what it means. Oh, for sure. Yeah. So that's what they were doing? Oh, that's what they were doing, girl. Good catch, Coffee. I didn't realize that that's what they were doing. Thank you, Harley. Ain't that something? Throwing shade at Melissa Moore because what did she do? Tell her to advocate? Or was going to get her to advocate? Thank you, Harley.
I've seen with survivors, and certainly it's been my personal experience, that it can be extremely healing and extremely valuable to, you know, talk about your experience, to share the things that you're sharing now, to meet other people who've been through this and support those people. Those can all be important parts of healing, but that's not necessary. That's not for everyone. And so I hope you don't feel, I hope that some of that heavy weight of that responsibility to do something because you're in the public eye can sort of dissipate.
I think that just has to be a decision that I come to trying to weigh out the pros and the cons. It's like, okay, what do I feel like, you know, my life's purpose is? Is it to go on to share other survivor stories, which I think a big part of it does, and still try to figure out how to manage this private public life and give each of it both respect.
Yeah.
Never ending journey.
Yeah, and I think, like, too, you were talking about the elements of time, right? I mean, this is all so fresh,
the girl
you know.
Does not want a private life.
Listen, I can speak at least for myself, for the community, you know, in APSAC and all that. Like, we will still be here, you know, if you decide, you know, now's just not the right time for me and I want to speak out on this in 5 years, 10 years, whatever. We'll still be here, you know.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What is she even talking about? What is she talking about? You know, if you don't want to speak out on it now and you want to wait 5 years, we'll still be here. Like, is she the one who's, like, trying to get her to advocate? Is that what it is? She probably is. She probably is, honey, because, you know, she's all about Gypsy's story. I just find it, I don't get believing a one-sided story from a person who literally committed murder, without doing any kind of looking into outside of what the perpetrator has said, without at least looking out those medical records. You know what I'm saying? But it's not going to matter anyway. Like I said, per their little Munchausen by proxy studies, it doesn't matter, because when Dee Dee found out in 2011 that Gypsy could walk, she did not make Gypsy be honest. So they're going to continue to say that Dee Dee has Munchausen by proxy solely because of that. And because, she lied about some of her symptoms or some.
Okay. And
Andrea said it doesn't matter that Gypsy Rose has a real medical condition that could explain some of her symptoms. She said that shit don't matter.
Questions. So you told me that you actually listened to a lot of podcasts when you were in prison. So do you still listen to podcasts, and any favorites that you want to share?
I do. I loved podcasts in prison, and I do listen to podcasts. Ken listens to podcasts too. So if one of us is not listening, it's the other listening. I love Anatomy of Change. I listen to them in prison. I listen to them now, and I love listening to them. I think, the growth mindset just resonated so much with me. And I can only hope that when Ken and I get married, we have a relationship like Seth and Melody.
What is the Anatomy of Change? I don't know this podcast yet.
It's a couple that they are both licensed therapists, and it's sort of like life coaching. Marriage and life coaching. So even if you don't get anything out of the marriage side of it, because I'm not married, but I am in a committed relationship, you get so much out of it, and just how to navigate interpersonal relationships and stuff like that. So I listen to a lot of that stuff.
Nice. And then what about television? I hear you are a 90 Day Fiance fan. Do you still watch 90 Day Fiance?
I do. And actually, like, a lot of the cast, because all of us in reality TV have either heard of each other in one way or another.
I clocked that too, that she mentioned, I'm not married. I'm in a committed relationship, but I'm not married.
That is funny.
She's throwing out those dry hints to Ken.
I've always been a fan of
She
Jasmine.
wants that ring.
She's a wild card. She's wild and sassy, but I love her. And Jovi and Yara. So Jovi used to work with my dad on the boat, because he's from New Orleans. Like, he's from the local areas, the bayous. So it's crazy.
I've watched seasons on and off. We did have a very fun.
Like, I ain't gonna lie, I've wondered if he's gonna ask her to marry him. I mean, she's done him pretty dirty since they've been together too, and they've only been together 2 years. And I mean, even after she had the baby, she did him dirty and was like sending Ryan little glamour shots of her and stuff. And I don't give a damn. I believe she's still talking to Ryan. Yeah.
Funny. We don't get a lot of opportunities for comedy on my shows, you can imagine. We did have a very
toxicology before it was done on Dee Dee, but nothing came up in Dee Dee's toxicology. Nothing. Even the sleeping meds that Gypsy Rose said Dee Dee took, they didn't show up either, which I thought was kind of crazy.
Funny moment of crossover, because our season 6 case took place in Hazelhurst, Georgia, which is a very tiny town, and it is known for being the seat of another true crime podcast.
I don't think he's like trying to rush into getting married. I don't think he's trying to do that.
And it is the home of Angela, Angela and Michael, who's like one of the most iconic 90 Day Fiance characters.
I was very surprised nothing came up in the toxicology, because I mean, Dee Dee was prescribed pain medication. You know what I'm saying? She was prescribed sleep medication. I don't get how nothing came up. Oh, you damn right. They cracking
I just was like, so now this is the third thing that in this tiny one stoplight town might be known for. So I was interested in your thoughts on 90 Day Fiance. Yeah. It's a whole universe, 90 Day Fiance.
It really is.
So many spinoffs. I had one of my questions from my listeners was like, what does your Netflix algorithm look like?
I definitely think she trapped Ken. She definitely did. Like I said, that unexpected pregnancy, it was only unexpected to Kennedy. It wasn't unexpected to damn her. She knew what she was doing. She knew she hadn't been taking her birth control like she was supposed to. I know sometimes he looks super annoyed, like just by her talking and shit. He gives her like that side eye look.
What other sort of like movies and TV have you been into since getting out?
Ken jokes with me. He's like, if it doesn't have romance or fantasy, you don't like it. But so there has been recently, I think it was on Apple, Pluribus. But it is a really good show. So the first season just ended. Really into that.
Well, you know, Ken said
we've actually been watching
he wanted her
The Chosen.
Oh, okay.
He wanted the stuff to
That's
come
really
out. Is
good.
what
So
Ken
I mean,
said.
we're on episode like
He was
5.
like, oh,
Jesus has already come into the picture, which is great. So we didn't have to wait a long time to see Jesus or anything. So
they put some
like,
expensive
unlike everyone on Earth, is just still waiting.
Gifts on here, like we.
Oh my gosh,
sorry.
honey. So,
can you hear me now?
Listen, if you are into romance and fantasy,
can you hear me now?
In terms of books, like what a good moment for you, because right now everything in books is romantasy. Like that's the
okay. I was looking at the we can't even set like.
Unfortunately, like I have not had time with a 1-year-old.
We can't even set goals like that anymore. Yeah. Like one of them's 500. That's a lot.
Book.
You know, I always just set them at like $1 or 10 cents or cent. Like one of these is 500.
Maybe after she's 8.
That's wild.
Well, you have some.
Is that like $5?
She's not at. I would ask. You're probably not even old enough to really be into any.
So she let me just see, but Christy was wrong for staying in touch with Kate and keeping her updated.
Oh,
I agree.
She gets a little older.
I agree.
Fan. That's actually a theme that did her.
I really think that Christy and Ken stayed in contact because Gypsy always knew she was going back to Ken. I think they knew that. And I think Ryan was just an address. I think Gypsy used Ryan specifically for that, for an address. Because if you look at the prison emails, she told him every which way she could, that she did not feel like that about him, that she was not attracted to that man. You know, and I'm pretty sure the reason she got out and slept with him was because she felt like she owed him one, just like she did with Nick. You murder my mom, you get some hoo-ha. You let me marry you and come to your address when I get out of prison, you get some hoo-ha. You know what I'm saying? And then the minute that that Ken had the money to make it to Louisiana, Gypsy was gone. She hit that door running. Yeah, they definitely knew they were going to get it. They were going to have a show. They also knew that like Gypsy, and I did not hear that in this either. But there's a part in the in here where it may be in the first part, but where she talks about the fact that before she ever signed her plea agreement, they were already making the Mommy Dead and Dearest documentary. So if that don't show people, like, Gypsy's story was a money grab. It was a money grab. You know, before Gypsy ever had her plea deal even signed. Thank you, Harley. Her mom, or not mom, but Christy, her dad, everybody in her family had already done their interviews. And the minute Gypsy Rose signed her plea agreement, she did her interview for HBO. For HBO Mommy Dead and Dearest. It was a money grab, dude. It was a fucking money grab. That's all it was. Yeah, she had the lifetime. Even Dr. Phil, like, if you look at the court documents, you can see where Dr. Phil and HBO were, like, immediately requesting certain documents and access to be able to record the court hearings and stuff like that. Probably, here's my thing. How did HBO know to reach out to her, that she was going to have some amazing victim turned survivor story? How did they know that before she ever signed her plea deal or anything? You know, how did they know that months and months ahead of time, unless they were helping create that narrative? You know, they wouldn't have known that unless they were helping to create the story and narrative. You know, it's sad. It's crazy, but it's true. Yeah. Yeah. And you know, there's a Springfield newsletter article that 2 days after Gypsy Rose was arrested, there was an article printed. Was Gypsy Rose a victim of Munchausen by proxy? And there's a Dr. Ross, I believe is her name, Dr. Ross. And in that article, she talks about how, you know, most victims of Munchausen by proxy do not know about the deception, which Gypsy Rose did know about the deception, you know. And she also says that Gypsy, you know, her and her mom were receiving financial stuff and how that sounds more like malingering. But they don't ever talk about that damn article. They probably did. Or I don't know if they knew about the murder beforehand, but I definitely think that they were all about spinning a new story. I honestly am starting to wonder if Rod knew that Dee Dee and Gypsy were kind of lying about what all was going on with Gypsy, you know? Thank you, Amber. Thank you. Because why would Christy say in the police statement things like, Gypsy's smarter than she appears, yada, yada, if they didn't know what was going on? Like, they obviously knew to some degree that Gypsy was being deceptive, you know? Facts. Can't diagnose a deceased person. Yeah. Well, and here's the thing. We got to remember that before Gypsy was arrested, you know, she posts a Facebook post. I think it was on the 14th. She makes the Facebook post, the bee is dead. So people start getting frantic at that point, you know, and then the cops get involved. They start trying to find Gypsy and Dee Dee, and they eventually find that Dee Dee is, you know, deceased. So somebody had to have contacted them and let them know that Dee Dee was deceased, especially since they were friends with all their family in Louisiana on their Facebook. They probably did. You notice in none of Gypsy Rose's like documentaries, you don't see the police interview of Rod where he is literally saying, I know for sure she had those seizures because she had an epileptic fit. You don't see that. You don't see that at all. And then you don't see the police statements where Christy talks about Gypsy being smart. Anything that made Gypsy look guilty or like she wasn't a victim, they left that shit out of all of her documentaries and stuff. Anything that didn't play into the she was helpless and a victim, they didn't show it. They left out a ton. They said she was very, very manipulative. Yeah. And even Gypsy in the Mommy, Dad, and Dearest documentary was like, I've never been honest. Not even with my attorney. Hey. I'm about to hop off here, though. I'll tell you what, though. Millennial 1980, I think she's going to be on live on YT here in a little bit. So make sure y'all are watching out for that. She's going to go over some of the stuff to do with Jeffrey Epstein and some things she has found that is very freaking interesting. I've got to hop off here and go in here, get ready for, you know, bedtime with the kids, get some stuff thrown in the oven and whatnot. But I will see you guys later, and have a good night. You're doing great. Don't forget, honey, she did this shit. Even if Andrea Dunlop is over there trying to make excuses for her, she did that shit. Thank you, Becky. That's right. 1980 Millennial commentates on YT. Have a good night, y'all. See you later. Bye.